Hello again. Today's video is going to be an addendum, if you like, of the last video I put up, a beginner's guide to making a goblet. The reason I'm doing this is that I had to edit a terrific amount of footage out because it went on and on and on and on, and even I was getting bored with it, to make it a little bit more viewable. However, in doing that, the way that I actually shot the video, it meant that a lot of important information was left out. So looking at it from a complete novice's point of view, those things should have been left in. And I have many helpful suggestions from experienced turners and new turners alike of what maybe I should have done. But I actually did most of those things, but I edited them out. So excuse me, that's my phone. I do have friends other than YouTube, isn't it amazing? Not a lot, mind. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, so the reason for putting this video up is to explain parts that possibly people needed explanations on. And what I will attempt to do in future videos, and hopefully I'll get better at it as time goes on, is to keep the videos as short as possible, but also in that sort of short video put all the relevant basic information in that many people will know. Oh, well, why is he saying that? Well, we have to remember that when we first started, we didn't know anything. And we still have a lot to learn, even down the road of experience. But in the very beginning, you need good basic grounding. It's not a definitive guide, it never will be definitive. I don't think there is such a thing as a definitive guide, because everybody does something, does things a little bit differently to somebody else to get the same result. So it's a case of trial and error. So I will stop talking now, which is strange for me, and show you what I edited out, and in future videos I will attempt to make them more technically informative with regards to explaining every process and every method that I use. Well, I hope you find it interesting, and I'll see you at the other side.
Pull this down here a bit and do a tenon to put into the jaws. This doesn't need to be roughed down really, because it's all going to be going, because the stem is going to be down here. So using a diamond parting tool and a pair of calipers, which have been set to the correct diameter that I need for my chuck jaws. Now, if you're not happy doing it that way, you can just do that and then check until you get it to the right dimension. Make sure that the shoulder is nice and square so that the jaws seat nicely against the shoulder. So I'll take out the spur centre now, and I'll put on my chuck, and then we'll chuck it up and we'll get turning the goblet. Okay, so I've chucked it up into my 4-jaw chuck. I'm using the medium gripper jaws. I've changed the centre purely and simply because that allows me to get nearer without touching the actual outside of the live centre. So my next job is to just square off this end piece, which again you can use various tools for that. I use the diamond parting tool, you can use your skew chisel, or indeed you could use a gouge if you so prefer, but I tend to go with the diamond parting tool, and what we do there is just light cuts. Nicely down, and that just squares off the end, which makes it nicer to turn. So a little bit of advice, if you like. Goblets come in all shapes and sizes. You can, and I tend to, on most of my projects concerning goblets, because I do a sort of a winey goblet with a longish stem, is the rule of thirds-ish, where the bowl is a third and of the total length of your finished piece,
and the stem and the base take up the 2/3. Okay, where that is just an approximation. Because don't forget, you're looking at something and it's on the horizontal, it's going to be standing up vertically hopefully, and it will look slightly different, so you have to get used to visualizing what you think the proportions are going to do. I like to get my base diameter the same within a hair's breadth as the diameter of the bowl. I just feel if the base is smaller than the bowl, then it looks a little bit top heavy, and if the base is bigger by any great degree than the bowl diameter, it tends to look a little bit clumpy, in my opinion. But when we get to the foot and the base, there are several ways of doing that as well. We'll discuss that at the time. Now, if you so wish, you can take a pencil and just by eye, sort of thinking that's approximately a third here, so we just make a mark, and yeah, that looks about right. So I mean, it's, as I say, it's not crucial, okay? It's what you feel happy with. We're going to do a plain goblet, we're not going to do any captive rings, no line burning, nothing, just going through the process that I tend to use and the various methods you can use to produce the goblet. Enough talking, as somebody said kindly on one of the comments. Less talking and more doing. Well, I can't change a habit of a lifetime. So you can do a little bit, as I say, we'll do a little bit of shaping on the bowl, but don't forget you want the meat of the wood left for when you do the hollowing. So just a very brief turn of a little bit of wood here, get this nice and round, and then we'll start the hollowing. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole process because I can't hog out a lot of wood at one time because there's very little support. So I have to use light cuts. So yes, it will take a little while. Now if I had the spindle steady here, I could take much bigger cuts because I'm literally got support for 1.5 inches in from the wood, so it's good support. If I get a catch on here as it is now, it's unlikely to fly off the lathe and cause damage, but what it will do, it'll pull it out a little bit from the jaws, and it'll be devil's own job to reseat it and get it central again. So very light cuts are necessary. Another little tip which I tend to use to give me a guide on where I'm going to be hollowing to, I get a thin parting tool, any tool will do, and very carefully and lightly just give yourself an indicator of where you're going to be hollowing. I'm going to refine the inside now and just smooth off a few little ridges, and I'll use a scraper for that. And the scraper that I like to use is one that I made myself from a square end scraper, and it is just like a mini bowl scraper if you like, and it has a rounded profile here just like a bowl scraper, and I use that for the inside of my goblets because the other one is too big, and that will do a nice cleaning up job in there. And then I'll sand it up through the grits, and I won't bore you with the sanding process. I dry sand, and I will start most probably on this at about 180 and then work my way up to 40, 320, 400 and 600, and then I will use my sanding sealer and cellulose thinners mix to 2 coats of that, let those dry, denib in between, and then 2 coats of wood wax 22, and then we can get on to the outside of the bowl. When you're sanding, in between each grit, before you go to the next finer grit, make sure you clean all the dust from the surface. Otherwise what you'll be doing is getting scratches that won't come out because you will have some particles left from the rougher grit that you just previously used. You can either use a little brush like this, which I tend to use in my goblets. If you have an airline, you can give it a blow. The reason for doing this part first and get is stability, because as we're working down the goblet, you can have less bulk of wood, no bulk of wood there, and it's going to be able to put some support at the end of the goblet. So we bring the tailstock up, and there are several ways. You can either use, if you have a revolving centre, which has the ability of removing the point. And this is an old one which I keep the point out all the time, and you can use a simple thing like a tennis ball, or if you go to a craft shop you can get those polystyrene balls that they have in craft shops, and just bring the tailstock up lightly, and that gives support as you're working your way down. The other method you can use is you can make a little tapered sleeve, if you like, which fits over, and then that then in turn will give support to the cut as well. So there's that method, and there are many different methods. Another one I quite like to use is, if you haven't got a live centre where you can take the point out, like this one I've got here, you can take a little piece of mouse matting from a cheap old mouse mat. You can put that onto the point there, and then feed your centre in to the goblet until it bottoms out, and apply a little bit of pressure, and again that gives you really nice support, bang in the middle, and it doesn't mark the work because the mouse pad is doing its job. If you have this sort of an arrangement, okay, now rather than actually pushing into the work in this method, I'm not going to actually do it, but I'll show you the way of doing it. And I saw this on a wood turning association, and this guy was doing a long stem goblet, and what he does is another method. He actually tapes this to the wooden wedge, like so, and tapes it really well, and puts tape around this way as well, about 3 or 4 strips lengthways, and then tapes it all on. And then you actually move the quill backwards, yeah, so that you're actually supporting it in a pulling action, which I suppose is a good method, because it's then taking pressure off the stem, whereas the method I tend to use, you are pushing into the stem. I haven't had a problem with the method I use, to be honest with you, so I think I'll continue using it. But if I ever do a really long stem goblet again, like I did some while ago, I might try that method. So those are various methods.
When you cut the base of any item that is going to be
standing on a surface, you need to undercut it slightly, only a slight angle, so that it actually seats on the rim of your base. So what I'll do now is, you can see my parting tool is going in at an angle, cutting in, undercutting it, and I should go down to about there, and then I can sand up everything and finish it. That about wraps it up. So you can appreciate that what you've just seen was edited out, and even some of that was edited to make it shorter. So it would have been a long video, the original one. However, that's down to me. That's the way I actually made the video. I've learned that to get that sort of information in, as well as a bit of interest in how it's actually produced, I have to rethink the way that I produce the beginners videos. It's all a learning curve, and keep your suggestions and comments coming, because that's helpful to me and eventually will be helpful for people who watch the video as new terms. Thank you very much for watching. One further thing, when somebody puts a dislike on a video, not just mine and everybody's, I mean, I haven't got a problem with people disliking anything I do, and I'm sure other uploaders realise that you can't be all things to all men. But it would be nice if the thumbs down people would explain why they're doing the thumbs down. I mean, if they hate wood, that's fine. I don't know why you've been watching it in the first place. But if there's something in there they really don't like, it might be the person, in which case that's unfortunate. There's nothing that we can do about that. It would be nice to know why, because we can take that on board possibly and alter something that will make it more interesting or more favourable to more people. Just a thought, and thank you very much for watching, as I have just said, and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. Cheers now.